I think so. All right. Let me know if you can hear me correctly. Okay, cool. So I was saying that I was having some issues earlier, so I wanted to make sure that you can hear me. All right, so for today, some of you may already be familiar with the API designer, but we are going to do something nice for this one. So, first of all, let's go into anypoint.mulesoft.com, and this will get you to the Anypoint platform. If you're not familiar with Anypoint platform, this is basically all of the MuleSoft products that we have in the cloud. In this session, I am going to do everything from my browser, which is cool because you don't have to install anything, you don't have to download anything. And I'm also going to follow our developer tutorials to see if they're actually nice or not. So I'm going to go to developer.mulesoft.com. I'm going to put this in the chat if you want to follow through with me. And once you're there, just go into start learning. This will take you to the tutorials and how to's list. And now I am going to do to part 7 of this, which is build your first API specification with API Designer. So this is the tutorial that I'm going to follow to see if everything that we put here is true or if everything is as clear as we thought it was. First of all, this was written by Aridam Kumar. So if you don't know Aridam, you can go check out their LinkedIn page. And they're also part of product marketing. So thank you, Aridam, for doing this. And also, you can see that we have some other tutorials here. So if this is the first time that you come and you want to learn more about the IDE, for example, you can just follow the rest of the tutorials that we have listed here in the getting started part. If you just want to learn your API, how to do an API specification with API Designer, you can just go straight to the last part, which is this one. And we can get started with this. There's also a video if you want to see Ardidam going through everything in this tutorial. And the only prerequisite, as you can see here, is to have an Anypoint platform account, which is what we're going to create. I'm going to create a new one just so you all can see how to create a new one and how easy it is. So again, you go into anypoint.mulesoft.com, or let me put this tutorial link here in the chat as well. You can just go here and click here to go straight to anypoint.mulesoft.com. And once you're there, you just have to fill out your information. So let's say Alexandra Martinez, and then my email. Phone number, I'm just going to make this up. Company MuleSoft. And username, I normally use A Martinez, and I had already one for Twitch, so I'm gonna do Twitch 2. I don't know how many I am going to end up with. And then there you go. Not a robot, I agree, accept. And that's it. That's how you can create a new account. It didn't even take like 1 or 2 minutes. You can enable multi-factor authentication if you want your account to be more secure. In my case, I'm just gonna leave it like that. Also here, once you arrive, you will be able to select the tutorials as well. So if this is the first time that you come, you can just click here on the tutorials and this will take you to the tutorial page again. So this is the Didui one, which is cool. You can go check it out as well. And now that we're here, this is Anypoint Platform. A very quick overview of Anypoint Platform. Here on the hamburger menu, we have the Design Center, which is where we are going to be doing our API specification right now. We also have Exchange, where you can find kind of like all of the APIs or apps, mule apps that you have. You can download, for example, connectors from Exchange, official connectors like the Slack connector. You can download them from here to use them in your mule applications, or upload any API or connector that you want the rest of the world to use. Kind of like an app store, I would say. Then you have data graph. So if you're familiar with data graph, you can also do data graph with Mule. I'm not going to get into much details. And all of the management center, which is all of the things that you can do with your APIs or your Mule applications. If you follow the Hello Mule tutorial that I showed at the beginning, or the part one of this series of tutorials in Get Started, you can get to know the access management API. No, access management. No, yes, the access management API manager, Exchange, and runtime manager. So follow that series to get to know all of those other products. For now, let's just click on Design Center. So we get here. I have nothing because this is a brand new account, which is great to be able to follow everything. And then let's see what Aridam says. So in this example that Aridam created, he's saying Danny works for Northern Trail Outfitters, a retailer of sports apparel, gear, and nutrition products. I'm not very good at reading, I'm sorry. So basically, they have an old customer database that requires special drivers and permissions to access. So Danny, they want to make this data widely and easily accessible. So to make this possible, they decide to build a REST API on top of the database. And here you can see the diagram of what we are trying to do, basically. We have the NTO's customer database, and we want to connect this database with a customer API. So on top of it is the API specification, and then we will have the logic implementation and the connectivity, but we are not going to do those two for this part. We're just going to do the API specification, which is at the top. So, all right, now that you understand the problem, let's start by creating the API specification. So if you go into Design Center and then you click on the Create New button and select New API Spec, you will see a prompt like the one below. So if I go here, Create New API Spec, notice that you can also create a new fragment, a new Mule app, or a new async API, which is one of the latest products that we've released lately. You can also go check them out if you are curious on how to do stuff like that. A new async API will look something similar to what we are going to do with the API specification, but this will be for an asynchronous API instead of just an API specification with RAML or Open API specification. And a new Mule application is more or less what you can do with the IDE that you have to download into your computer, but you will be able to do a Mule app in the cloud. This is called the Flow Designer. So if you want to go check it out, you can go. I can try it out at the end if you want me to. For now, let's just click on New API Spec. And now we are going to name this NTO Customer Database API. Let me just copy and paste this. And the Aridam is saying, guide me through it. So we are not going to select design it on your own unless you are very familiar with a specific API specification language, for example, RAML or Open API specification, and you can select JSON or YAML to base it on. So we don't want to do that for now because we want this to do as simply as possible. So guide me through it and create API spec. What about here? Huh. I changed my microphone. So if I change back, I get. Alright, I'm not sure what is happening with my microphone, so I'm just gonna continue with the audio from the laptop. So this may add background noise, but that's fine. Alright, we'll continue with the laptop's microphone then. You will hear my cat probably. Alright, so we have the title, and we're gonna put it here. And then the version, we're going to add 1000. Protocols, HTTP and HTTPS. Media type, application JSON. Base URI. And description. Alright, so we have all that basic stuff. It looks exactly like this one. And then here the tutorial is saying that you will notice these two parts on the right side of the screen. So if I go here at the bottom, you may not see it, hold on. If I go here at the bottom, you will be able to see the RAML and the OAS. So if you click on the RAML, you will be able to see how the RAML specification looks like. And if you click on the OAS, you will see how the Open API Specification part looks like. So you just have to put the basic stuff on the side of the screen. You just have to fill out all the details that you want. We will continue filling out more details. And here you will be able to switch from RAML and Open API Specification. So you can have just one specification that you have to do it visually, and you will be able to see the RAML and the Open API Specification. Hi. So let's continue. Now we are going to add a new data type. So on the left side of the screen, we have to click on the plus button and click Add Data Type. Let's go here, Add Data Type, and then we have to fill out these details. So for the address data type, first the name will be address, type object, and description address data type. We already have object, and that's it. Then click on the Add Property button for each of these properties. So we have street, not required, string, and not union. So street, not required, string, and not union. Then city, same thing as before. Postal code, same as before. State and country. And none of this is required. These are all strings and none of them is union. Okay. Then finally copy the following example and paste it. I can just use the copy button right here to just copy these and paste it on the example field at the bottom of the page. Click on the edit button to be able to modify the pre-populated data. So if I go here and I click on the edit button, and then I can just remove all of this and paste this. And that's it. This is how our RAML should look like now. We have all of these details, we have the example, we have the properties, and our first address type Now we're going to add a second type, which is going to be contact. So following the same thing we just did, just click on the plus, add data type, and then contact. Contact data type for the description. And this is also object, I believe. Yeah. And then add property, and we're going to add all of these properties. First, we have first name. It's not required. Type string, not union. So basically what we're doing is that we're creating the specification of how all of the objects or things that we want to see in this API specification is going to look like. So for example, here we have the contact object, which is basically like a person, for example. And a person can have a first name, a last name, a phone, and more things. And for example, here we do have one required property, which is the last name. Why is this required? As you can see, this is the only required one, because we just need the last name apparently. So this all depends on the design that you're going to be working with. So if this design, for example, only requires the last name of the person or the contact to be able to continue with the flow, then that's the only thing that we will be requiring for this, and the rest is not required. Same for the address. If you notice, I will go back to the address for a sec. We don't have any of these as required, and this is because I'm assuming that the address part will not be actually required to continue with this API specification. So these are all not required, and in contact we do have the last name, which should be required. And now here we have an example of how this, these last two things are an address. So we're actually now using this data type address that we just created into this contact data type. So if I go to the bottom, I will see the address data type, and I will be able to select it here. Now if I go here and, did I copy? No. I copy this example, which is my contact information example, and I remove all of this and I paste this. I will be able to see my contact information example. And let me just open this so you can see how it looks like. So we have a first name, for example, Danny. Then we have the last name, phone, email, delivery address. And as you can see, both the delivery address and the postal code are objects that we just created with our previous data type. And our previous data type had street, city, postal code, state, and country. So we're creating a new object that contains the object that we had previously created. And this looks fine. Then we're going to start defining the specification resources. So if I go now to resources and select the plus icon, here I will be able to select add resource. So once that we do that, we want to create a new resource. This is the URI that we will be using to access our API. So let's put /customers. So remember that, let me just go here a sec. Remember that this is a customer API, so we want to be able to access all of the customers from the NTO customer database. So this is why we are creating a resource called customers, to be able to just do like the host of the API, the /customers, and get all the list of customers that we have. And we want to create a resource path customers, a resource method get, and a name of get list customers. Also, if you're not familiar with any of these things that I'm just saying right now, you can just go to the previous tutorial, which is best practices to design your first API specification. and you will be able to see first what is an API, and this video explains it so beautiful. It's basically just like a server that comes to your table and you have a menu and you order a burger and it goes back to the kitchen and so on. You should go and check it out if you're not familiar with all of these concepts. Then this also explains what is an API specification, why are you building an API in the first place, and then some components and best practices from the API specification. For example, right now, the thing that we are creating in this like /customers part, this is a resource. So if you go here to the part that says resources, you will be able to see some examples like /getContacts, /contacts. But this is explaining like why you shouldn't use /getContacts and why you should use /contact instead. Then it also explains some of the HTTP methods that you can use, for example, get, post, patch, put, and delete, and how you can use them for. So for now, we will be creating a get request, which is just to retrieve data. And we also have query parameters, status codes, and that's it. And also if you want to see more HTTP methods or status codes, you can check out this documentation listed there. So for now, we only need to know what resources are and methods. So we have the customers resource, and we said we wanted to add a get, and the name will be get list of customers. So we're in customers, then we're in get, and then in the summary we can put here the name get list of customers. This is basically just explaining what our request is going to be doing. Now we want to configure the response for the customer's resource. So first go into the responses tab and then click add new response. Ensure the status is 200 OK and click add body. So let's go into responses, add new response. This is 200 OK. Click add body. And then we want to ensure that the media type is application JSON and set the type to array. So yes, this is application JSON and the type is going to be an array. Now expand the body from the arrow at the right, details, and select the type contact you just created. So this arrow, which is details, you cannot see it, I think. What about here? Yeah, you can see it. All right, so click on the details arrow and then this will expand. And here in the type of the array that you will have here, you can select the new contact that you created. This is basically saying every time you go to the resource customers, you will receive a response that contains an array of contacts. So each contact can be like this. It can have a first name, last name, phone, email, delivery address, and postal address. And then the delivery address and postal address can be, can contain different fields, but they come from the address data type, which we also created here, which is street, city, postal code, state, and country. So now that we did that, we are going to now add a second resource, which is going to be customers and then customer ID. And I'm going to explain what that curly bracket means. If I go back to resources, click on the plus button and then add resource. Now I have a new resource here that I can put. And then if I just paste what I just copied, which is /customers / curly brackets, customer ID, curly brackets, then you will notice, oh, you have to create it, never mind. Oh, and also the name, get customer by ID. So if I go again to the get, and then summary, and the name, I can put get customer by ID. So this is exactly what this is doing. So if I zoom in on this thing right here, we have two resources now. We have the customers resource and the customer ID resource. So if you look at it this way, you go into the database and you go to look for the customers. So the list of customers, the array of customers or the array of contacts that we created, it's going to be under /customers. But then if we want to access one specific customer, so not all of the list of customers, then we can just use this second resource, which is customers/customer ID. For example, if we have a customer with ID number 1, we can do /customers/1, and this will return my customer information with the ID number 1. If I put 2, it will get the information from the customer number 2, and so on. So this is what we are doing with the resources. Now, if you click on the URI parameters button next to the resource path, you can select add URI parameter and set up this value. So the parameter name customer ID, it is required, it is a string, and it is not a union. So if I click here on URI parameters on this part, it will open this little thing that I just said, because I was explaining that if you send here the customer ID, well, this is kind of like a variable, right? If it's a 1, it will get the customer ID number 1. If it's a 2, it will get the customer ID number 2. So it's not static like customers. Customer will always be customers. It's not a variable, it's not a parameter, it's just going to be customers. So in order for me to connect this customer ID from the URI into the variable or parameter or resource or however you want to see it, you can just go here into URI parameters, click on add URI parameters, and here just select customer ID, which is this parameter that we created here. And then we said this is required, and this is a string, and this is not a union. So we'll leave that like that. Actually, I can zoom in. Okay. And now we have that, and we want to now configure the response for this other resource. So just as we previously did, we select responses, add new response, 200 OK, body. So here we go to responses, then add new response, 200 OK, and we will add a new body. This is going to be application JSON, just as we previously did, and the type will be contact. So here, type. In the previous resource, we had selected array, and inside of array, we had selected the other type, which was contact. But for this one, we are only going to select contact because we don't want a list of customers. We just want a single customer, which is the contact type. All right. Now that we did all of that, we have the first draft of our API specification. So before I continue, let me just do a quick summary, and you can let me know if you were lost with anything that I said. If I didn't explain something correctly, I can just go back. So first, we added the data type address, which contains properties. All of these are strings: street, city, postal code, state, and country. And here we have an example of how the address looks like. Then we added the contact data type, which is an object and has all of these properties. These 4 are string properties, and this one is required. So first name, last name, phone, and email. And then these last properties are delivery address, postal address, and both of these are address, which means that these two are also objects that contain street, number, and all of that other information. And now that we have the two data types, we went ahead and created the first resource, which is /customers. And here we have a get request that we are going to do because we just want to retrieve information for now. We don't want to modify, delete, or create. We just want to read. So the name is get list of customers. We created a response at 200 OK, and the body of this 200 OK is going to be an array, and the type of each thing inside the array is going to be a contact, which is an object containing first name, last name, phone, email, delivery address, and postal address. And those two are addresses. Then we go into the customer ID. This is also a GET request, and this is going to get the customer by ID. So instead of getting the list of customers, this is just going to retrieve one single customer, and this works like this. It goes into customers, and then it sends the ID of the customer that we want to retrieve. The ID of the customer is a URI parameter called customer ID. We have it here and we have it here, and this will eventually, in the implementation, filter all of the things that we get back. And the response is going to be at 200 OK, and the type is going to be contact. All right, so we did that. And the next thing that we are going to do is to test our API using the mocking service. So you can read all of that explanation if you want. Basically, once you have all of this API specification created, you want to kind of get a feeling of how it will be like when you call your API specification. So instead of just going ahead and implementing everything that you already have with like the code and the flows and connecting to the database and everything, instead of just going ahead and doing all that and wasting your time doing all that, you can actually test how this will feel like and not having to actually connect to your database. So you don't have to have any kind of code. You can just go ahead and test this with a mocking service. A mocking service is basically just creating like test data that is going to be returned to you. You saw that we created like examples here, right? So these examples are going to be returned to you. Like assuming that this is working, this is a 200 OK response, everything went well, this is your list of customers, and this is your customer, stuff like that. You will be able to test it and see if you're missing something before actually going into the implementation. So for that, let's click on this button right here that says try it. This opens the mocking service stuff. So what we're going to do is under select server, we're going to select mocking service. This will create a dummy API request and displays the example response as it would appear in the API as if it was like already implemented. So if we select here the server, we can select mocking service, and this will create a request URL. So if I copy this and open a new window and paste this, for example, if I run it, no organization ID header. Did I actually have to send that? Oh well, if I click here on send, oh, you cannot see it. If I click here on send, this will return more or less like how your response would look like in the real life, assuming that this is a real life. As you can see, this is an array. If I minimize this is just an array. And inside the array we have the first object, well, just one object. Again, if I minimize this, you will see that this is just one object. And this object has everything that we just said, which is first name, last name, phone, email, delivery address, and postal address. And then the delivery address and postal address are another set of objects. So if I minimize them, I can see this. If I put them back, I can see all of the information. But again, this is the example that I created, right? This is so you can see with some dummy examples how it will look like. And then what else can you do? Oh, you can also select the other resource. Right now we're in the customers resource, so we just got the array of customers that we got back. So if I select customers, customer ID, and then go back here, if I click on send again, this will now get me another, let me take out the camera. This will now get me an object. This is not an array, this is just one object, because this time I'm just sending the customer's customer ID. So I'm getting the customer by ID. So this is not a list of customers, this is just a customer that I requested. And here you can see that I can send the URI parameters. This is an example. I can put one here, for example, and I can send, and this will continue working because I don't have any actual implementation. But here, for example, I already noticed something, me and my big brain. So if I have, for example, customer ID, because I'm sending the customer ID, right? I'm sending to, oh, I cannot actually change it. Interesting. Oh, there it is. So if I send, for example, a 4, which would be like customers, let me see if I can see this. Yes. So for example, here in the URL, I just want you to see the URL. Oops. We have whatever it is before this, and then we have /customers/4. So in the real life, this is what we would be calling to get like the customer with ID number 4. But I already noticed something here. In my response, I don't get my customer ID back, which is kind of a bummer because I just want to make sure that I am indeed sending my customer ID number 4. Well, receiving my customer ID number 4. So how can I change that? If I go back to contact, which is this data type, I can add a property, for example, customer ID. This is going to be required, and this is going to be, let's say, a number, for example. Let me minimize this. So I add the customer ID, this is required, this is a number, and now I have an error here saying, you cannot see it, should have required property customer ID. Why is this? Because my example right now doesn't have a customer ID. So I am going to add this customer ID, and then this is a number, so let's say 4, and then comma. So now I have an example with my customer ID number 4. Now if I go back to customers, customer ID, and I try to call this again, so mocking service, customer ID 4, and send. I don't know why this keeps coming back to example, but okay. So we send this, and now we receive a customer ID number 4. Again, this is just an example, right? So this makes more sense to me because now I can actually see that my customer ID is a customer ID that I sent. And again, this is just a mocking service. Whatever I send here, it doesn't really matter. It's not gonna change my response. This is just to kind of get the look and feel of how my API would look like once this is already implemented. So this for me makes more sense because now I can see my customer ID, and if I go back to customers and I try to call this again, I will also receive my customer ID property that I just added to my data type. And again, this makes sense because now I can see my actual ID for each of the customers if I had more customers. Can I actually add another customer to see it reflected here? So if I click on edit, this is an array of contacts. And this is an example. Can I add body? No, I don't want that. Interesting. What if I put an array here? Can I just do that? If I put array and then this and then a second one And let's say that this is customer ID number 7 and this is Danny 2. I wonder if this will work. Let's see, try it and then send. I didn't change this. Oh well. Mocking service, send. Alright. This is so interesting. So now I am getting back an object with just one property that says 0 and another one that says 1. So I guess my example didn't work. Let me just put this back as inherited and call this again. And now I get my array back. I wonder how can I actually add an example with an array, because apparently I can't do it here. Well, that's a question for another day. Now let's continue with the tutorial. So yes, I did all of that, and now I am ready to publish my API to Anypoint Exchange, because as you can see here in the text, we want to ensure that Danny and other team members can take advantage of your work by reusing this API specification rather than reinventing the wheel. So basically, because I already did this API specification to connect to the NTO database, and I want to share this with the rest of my team so they can just use this API specification as well to connect to the NTO database, instead of like actually creating all of these things that I already created, they can just go to Exchange, which is like the app store where you can get all of your stuff. So let's click on publish and then publish to Exchange. So in the new window, we are going to put the asset version 100, 100. In the API version, it already comes from the root file. So whatever you put in your API specification is going to come here automatically. And that's it. Let's publish this to Exchange. It will only take a few seconds, I think. I hope. What else did I have here? Oh no. All right. Well, that's all the tutorial, and the next steps are just to continue trying new stuff. Okay, this is already published to Exchange. You can click here to view an Exchange, or you can click on Done. Let's see what this opens in a new tab. This goes directly to the Exchange page where this information is located. If I click on Done, I will have to manually go there. So if I go to Exchange, this is how Exchange looks like. And I did mention that you can find here some connectors for your applications, like the Slack connector. So right now my company is called MuleSoft, but this is not like actual MuleSoft. This can be called anything that you want. This is the information that you have here. But if you click here on the provided by MuleSoft link, you will see all of the different connectors, API specs, or whatever that you can find from MuleSoft. For example, this, you can see here it says that this is a connector. Or here, you can see here that this says that this is an API fragment. Whoop. You can also find a template and other kinds of assets. I think most of them will be connectors. Here you can find connectors, templates, examples, policies, API groups, REST APIs, SOAP APIs, async APIs in case you want some examples, HTTP APIs, API specs fragments, and custom. And then share with me, which is if other people shared some assets with you, you can just see them here and share with me. For now, no one has shared anything with me, so nothing is there. And if I go to my organizations link, which again, I named it MuleSoft, but this can be named anything. And you will have the REST API that you just created, which is the API specification. So if you click on it, you will be able to see now the page of your API specification. And you have here all of the details. So it's a type REST API. Organization is MuleSoft. This is like the dummy thing that I created here. Published by me on December 14. This is private, so I'm not sharing this publicly. And you can also add a contact name and a contact email. For example, Alexandra Martinez, and then an email. And this is so people that come here will be able to send you an email in case there's an issue with this asset or something like that, which is cool. And you can also have different versions. You cannot see it. You can also have different versions here. So if you do some improvements to your API specification, you can release a different version and put it right here. And for example, once that you start deploying the actual implementation into your APIs, and you connect them to Exchange and to API Manager and everything, you will be able to see here the instances of, for example, is it in development, is it in production, is it in sandbox, I don't know, the different environments that you have, you will be able to see them there. And here you have the endpoints that you created, which is customers and customer ID / customers, which is the main one. And here is the get list of customers. This is the example that you will receive. And then you also have the / customer ID. If you click here, you will see that you have the get customer by ID request. And this is how your response will look like. You can also see it in table view or in source view, however you prefer to see it. And you can also copy. And then you will have also the list of properties. So it's like first name, last name, and remember that last name was required. So you get here the string required tag. And then, for example, delivery address and postal address, which were of address data type. You can also see the example, and again, see it on table view or in source view. And you will be able to copy this as well. Where is it? Yes. And then the last one that I added, which was the customer ID, and I decided that it was an integer, so this is a 1. But this, I added it at last, so if you just follow the tutorial, you will not be able to see this because this is not in the tutorial. You can also see a summary of the whole API specification. If you go here, you will see the API endpoints, which is / customers, the get request, or / customer / customer ID, which is a get request. And that's it. Let me go back to the assets provided by MuleSoft so I can show you a more decent example. Let me REST APIs. Let's just select a random one. Oh, there's nothing here. Well, that's sad. What about HTTP APIs? What is that? Nothing. Okay. What about the async APIs? Nothing. All right, let's see about what about the connectors. Let's see the Salesforce connector. There's a video and there is additional stuff on how to use it, and you can also add reviews. For example, if you wanted to rate this, Oh, I cannot select the 5. All right. And you can add more comments, like a title, a description. You can publish this. So you can also rate other assets, again, like an app store, more or less. Let me search for the Slack one. So there's a Slack connector for Mule 3. There are different templates for Flow Designer. There's a connector for Mule 4, community version, REST API. Let's see the REST API. Yes, this one has endpoints. So if I go to the summary, there is one /ping endpoint, which is a GET request. And there is one /Slack endpoint, which is a post. So if I click on that, for example, I will be able to see that it has code examples, it has security, it has some headers. Here's an example of a header. And then the body that I will send to this request. And then we have the different responses. So in our case, we only did the 200 OK response, which is a successful response. And you are able to see here an example, again, a table view or a source view, and the string required, which is a property, where this is only returning one property. But you can also get a 400 error, for example, or you can get a 500 error, and this is how it will look like. It's funny that I cannot go back to the JSON view. What if I refresh the page? I guess I can. All right, cool. But it's weird that I click on the table view, source view, and then I cannot see this actual response in JSON again, but oh well. And that's it. That is our stream time for today. We built our first API specification. And then another cool thing that you can do, just really quick, so if I go back to Design Center, to the API Designer, where was it? Oh, here. I can edit my RAML if I already know RAML and I don't want to use the visual editor. I can just edit RAML here, or I can download this RAML specification to use it anywhere else. And also with the Open API specification, I can just download this or edit this part. But notice that if you click on edit, you will not be able to come back. So this says you will no longer be able to edit this project in the visual editor. So you can just go and edit the RAML or the OAS manually, but you will not be able to come back to the visual editor to do it with API Designer's visual editor. But everything else will remain the same. You can also publish here to Exchange, or you can do more stuff. What if I click here and make public? Oh, I can go here now. /customers. Yay! Okay, you needed to do that to be able to make this thing public. And now if I do /4, yay, I get my response back. You can also do this with Postman, but I'm not gonna do that for now. All right, and then I can just turn it off again. Cool. All right, so that was it. Let me know if you have any questions on what we just saw. Let me know if you have any suggestions on what you want me to do next. And that's it for this year, folks. I will go on vacations, so I will not be coming back for the streams until January. And I will see you back in January anyway. So enjoy your holidays, eat, have fun, do whatever you do on your holidays. And I hope that everything goes well and you receive a lot of gifts. All right, that's it. Thank you all for joining. Bye bye.